So we are entering into the year of snake as per the Chinese zodiac. So do expect a lot of twists and turns. It will not be a one vertical line upward or a one vertical line down over there. And we saw just happening in the Southeast Asia market for the past 2 quarters. Third quarter, ASEAN, darling market for everyone, the best performing market. Fourth quarter, with relentless outflows from the foreign investors, it ended up being one of the worst performing markets in Asia. So expect that to continue this year too. And it's most important to understand what are the starting conditions for us. So if we look at the Asian economies, the starting conditions are quite unfavorable. There is a lot amount of slack in the system overall. Economies barring Taiwan and Singapore, which does not have much slack, and then a lot of them are dependent on exports overall. And most importantly, if the US-China tariff situation worsen, then a lot of the Chinese exports will be redirected, or you can say in the form of a dumping towards our economies over there. So taking that into account, you will see that our external growth or a demand will take a hit, and a lot more will fall upon domestic policies and domestic consumption to do the heavy lifting. Impact on the country level basis will be quite varied, and that's where the allocation which JP just touched upon comes into the picture.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to zero on that domestic consumption. A number of other analysts we spoke to said that this will become even more important because economies in Southeast Asia that depend more on domestic consumption and the robustness of consumer demand will be more insulated from possible uncertainties. Is this a view that that JPMorgan shares, and does that mean then that perhaps Indonesia might benefit from that more than the Philippines, which you did upgrade to neutral but still below overweight?
It is not that easy also to navigate because remember last year the domestic consumption suffered in ASEAN because real purchasing power were down. Inflation was a big headache, incomes were not rising at that faster pace overall, and hence this is the reason why consumers were not the best performing as a sector or as a theme overall. But this year, considering inflation pressures are going away, and top of it, you are seeing domestic policy support coming in form of a monetary policy rate cut. We just saw 25 basis point cut by Bank of Philippines in December over there. We do anticipate more cuts from Philippines as well as Thailand this year also. So that's where consumption will also get supported overall, but it will have a varying impact. We do see in countries like Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, consumer can support us, but markets where consumer is still weak, it will be difficult to see them as a buying or an overweight kind of a market.
Right. Rajiv, I want to ask you about the earnings growth potential across Southeast Asia. It's going to be difficult because we mentioned it's very, you more than most know how difficult it's going to be to summarize 6 major markets. But can you talk to us about what the biggest drivers are for earnings in Southeast Asia and which market might have the most upside to watch out for?
So similarly, if we look at the GDP dynamics, economies that are being supported by consumer much more, they will tend to do well. So Indonesia, Philippines, if you look at their GDP growth, 60 to 70% of their GDP growth comes from the consumption side. So that economies will tend to do well because the trade part of the economy, because global trade can go into a recession due to the US-China tension and even due to what's happening into the Chinese growth also. Taking that into account, the number one driver for you should be how much is the consumption part of your economy or domestic demand. Second, what the policy makers are doing. You cannot just go inside the shell and just start seeing what the external demand doing. You will need to take the front seat and try to give support either through fiscal side or monetary side to support that package overall. And lastly, I will definitely believe margin expansion.